Welcome to Commuteless, a show about working from home with less stress and more freedom so you can live life on your terms. I'm Kyle Adams, and I'm joined by my co-host, Corey Miller.
Hello.
Corey, I know that I say the same thing on every intro, but I just love that. We took so much time to come up with that little description of our show. I feel like that's undervalued.
We were out on walks, on individual walks, and we were like, hey, did you update the doc? I had this idea. What do you think about this? And then throwing words back and forth. And finally it was this is what we want to do. We want to help people who are working from home have less stress and more freedom. I was like, oh, that's it. That's the one, Kyle. You nailed it.
So are you saying that we were working together and communicating?
It seems to be the case.
Because that's what today's show is all about. It's about communicating with the people that you work with. And
what a segue, Kyle.
Yes. Thanks for pointing out the segue, Corey.
You're welcome.
So
You're welcome.
Just like the episode before this, we went through some tips about communicating with the people that you're close to. So if you go back to commuteless.fm/6, you can listen to that. Some great tips about communicating with people close to you, friends, family, etc. This show is all about communicating with the people you work with, the people that you're, doing work with on a daily basis. I said work with a lot just now.
Yeah, I'm sure that it has now been communicated to the listener what we're talking about.
Over communicate. If you listen to the last episode, you know about over communication, Corey, and I just did that.
That's exactly that's what I was hoping for. Well, why don't you get us started? You've got a list. I've got a list. Last time I started first. Why don't you start with your points?
So the first thing I have on my list is don't assume everyone knows the same information. And this is really easy to do because you work at the same place or you're working together. So this applies to several different things. There's kind of some layers here, Corey. You may be in a situation where you work with a team and you're working remotely. You could assume that everyone knows the same thing. They're all on the same page because you're on the same team.
Right.
There's other situations where you're working with a client and you may think that you and the client are on the same page. There's other situations where, you are not necessarily working with clients and you're not necessarily working with a team. Maybe you just own your own store or something like that online. And the way you can assume people are on the same page is people that you're working with. There's always someone you're working with, Corey.
Right.
That could be your supplier for products, for example. And
yeah, that's true.
You can't just assume they're on the same page as you. So you have to be absolutely 1,000% positive that somebody is on the same page with you, and it's okay.
Right.
This is very similar to the tip in the last episode where I talked about over communicating. And I'm going to harp on this a lot. This is a big deal for me, communicating with people, getting your point across, those kind of things, making sure that they understand where you sit and you understand where they sit, those kind of things. So be thorough with your explanations. And I see this so much, Corey. This happens way too often.
Yeah.
Here's an example. So you say to someone, will you share your screen tomorrow and show that doc we were working on? There's not a lot of context there, right?
Right.
Maybe you know that both of you are going to the same meeting and you know that both of you have been working on the same project, but the other person may not be thinking about that, right? So don't assume that they know exactly what you're talking about. So what you might actually say is, during tomorrow's meeting with Kevin, will you share your screen and show him the doc with the ideas for the podcast that we've been working on? That's so clear. Yes, it's more words.
It's so much more descriptive, yeah.
But even just saying that, someone who's not even part of this conversation knows what we're talking about.
Right.
And so you really want to share that information and make sure that people are on the same page as you and not assume that people are on the same page. And this is really important, I think, just in general in life, but it's super important when you work remotely. Because when you work remotely, you're not running into people and you're not casually reminding people of something. You have to actively communicate. You have to actively make sure people know what's going on. And so this is a big one. Just don't
Yeah.
assume everyone knows the same information.
Well, and it also takes a lot longer for communication to get back and forth, like just in the nature, even if you're using something real time. So you're using Slack or you're using your own custom solution or Google Chat or whatever it is, there's still a latency that happens there. So the amount of time that, you and I are having a conversation or we're in person and, you say, we share your screen tomorrow and show the doc. I can quickly say, what doc? Well, this doc. Okay. So now we have some back and forth. That's a normal human interaction. But when you're conversing with someone online, there's a lot of time that can be saved by taking just a little bit extra time on the initial in that initial moment to clarify what you're saying before you are asked to clarify what you're saying. Um I had this recently with Charlie, the designer at ConvertKit. She and I work really closely together. And I asked her some question about her design, but I was like really kind of vague about it. And we went back and forth for probably and she had like a meeting and there was these back and forth things. And I think I didn't get an answer to my question for probably an hour and a half. And I realized it was because in my original question, I was not clear about what I was looking for. And later, after I realized that, how she was responding to me was not getting me the information I needed, then there was something wrong with the way that I was presenting the query. And and that wasted a lot of time because then now I'm sitting there going, well, I can't work on this thing I wanted to work on because I'm waiting to get back the info. So I have to do something else. And I had to context switch and all of the stuff. So if I had been a little bit more descriptive and a little bit more intentional with my question, I could have gotten back a better result and spent less time waiting and also prevented wasting her time as well because maybe she thought she was getting me the information I needed and now all of a sudden I'm still asking her questions and I'm wasting her time, and that's not good either.
Yeah, and there's even that aspect of caring for the other person's time and really being that helpful person
Yeah.
because I work part of my job is working customer service. And so because we're working on customer service for a web app, there's always things that change, right? Like
Right.
something changes today, tomorrow, there's a bug, there's a something, it's just anybody who works in that space knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so sometimes you'll say, "Hey, did is is this happening for everybody?" And the worst answer you can give is, "Oh, you didn't see the update yesterday?"
Yeah, right.
Or, "Didn't you see that bug report?" And it's like, I wouldn't ask the question if I had seen that, So instead, communicate more. Just say, "Yes, we this came out yesterday. It's a problem. Here's a link to the conversation about it, or here's the details." Something that's much more helpful and actually communicates what's going on. Because even though you may feel like, okay, they should have known that, and you just say that, you're wasting both of your time because
Right.
you take a little bit of time to type this message that is completely unhelpful, and the other person feels like an idiot and still needs an answer and is still searching around. And meanwhile, other people may not actually respond to that person because they realize, oh, they've got a response. They should know that this was a thing. And so just don't assume don't assume people know stuff, especially if they're asking questions and trying
Yeah.
to figure something out.
Totally. I don't want to harp on this one too long, but it also can just be the fact that your team is large and not everybody knows what you're working on. Like your work seems really important to you because you're working on it, but a lot of people probably don't know what you're working on. And, there are times one of my favorite things actually is also one of the scariest things is when there's so much content that's going out from ConvertKit right now. We're doing stories and videos and blog posts and all the emails. And I have no clue as to most of those things and their processes and how these smaller teams and squads are working. And And so I also have to be proactive in some cases and say, what exactly is going on? I need to get more information on this. And this kind of steps into, where is the information being gathered? Is it being presented to me? And can I access it? And am I being proactive about accessing it? And that kind of goes into my first tip on my list, is to take a lot of notes, like more notes than you might think is a lot of notes. And I still struggle at this. But at my previous job, I worked with a guy who, he would always be like, "So Corey," like we'd be halfway through a meeting and he's like, "Well, because you're taking notes on this, obviously," like because he would always be reminding me, and and I always felt so bad because I was like, "Oh, I should have started taking notes." But we thrived as a team, and he was right. I was wrong. We thrived as a team when we had copious notes, because then I could, instead of just saying, instead of pinging him, I could go back to the notes and we could remember, hey, in this meeting, we talked about these things. This person brought up this thing. This person brought up this idea. Here's the conclusion. And I can't tell you how many times I have gone back to somebody and said, I know we had that meeting 2 weeks ago, but I've completely forgotten the conclusion. And I can't move forward. And again, that's just wasting everybody's time. It's just wasting everybody's time. You can use that for better things. So take notes, take a lot of notes. There's so many note taking apps out there. Google Docs, like Ulysses, Microsoft Word, Notion. We just started using Notion for this podcast. I'd never used it before. It's amazing. Highly recommend. I'll put it in the show notes, commuteless.fm/7. There's so many ways to do that. And there's so many ways to do it where you can collaborate. Like you can collaborate right with the people that are in the meeting or that need to have this note, these notes. So there's no excuse. You will thank yourself and me. In fact, you will thank me more than you thank yourself. But take a lot of notes.
Yeah, and on that same topic, and I know that we mostly talk about working with people online, but if you see someone in person and you have you're there specifically for a meeting, right? Of some kind, it could be a friend and you're talking about making a podcast or something like that.
Yeah.
Either online or in person, do your best to, if you're not going to take notes, if you need to focus, because sometimes you just need that focus and not constantly writing stuff.
Right.
There's so many options to record things nowadays. Like,
Yeah. Right.
we can record this call if we want to, that Corey and I are on to see each other while we're recording the podcast. We could record that and we could play it back and see it. You can do that with online meetings. If you're in person, shout out to Corey McCabe, by the way, because he's super good at doing this. He does this every time we meet in person, and I'm always impressed by it, and I always forget to do it in my own life. But he will just pull out his phone and record what we talk about. So if we are talking about a serious topic like growing our businesses or what we want to do in the future, he'll just turn on record and set his phone down in front of us. And that's
Yep.
probably what you're going to do anyway. You're going to set your phone in front of you on the table or wherever. So why not have it recording and collect that information? And later you can go back and transcribe it or listen back to it, whatever you want to do. If you never touch it again, that's fine. But at least you have that to go back on if you ever want to. So there's really easy ways to do this, is my point. You don't necessarily have to be typing during a meeting the whole time.
Right. Yeah. And if you need to be, at least communicate about it. Right. Like, I've gotten some feedback from teammates in the past of like, well, sometimes it feels like Corey's not really with us in these meetings. And that's a flaw of mine that I've had to, because I'm very ADD and you need to, all these things happening and squirrel and all this stuff. And, but if I'm taking notes, then I need to communicate that and say, hey, by the way, before we get started, I'm taking notes. Here's the link if you want to follow along. Easy, really simple. Hey, we're about to have this meeting. You mind if I record this just so we can reference it later? Great. Boop. There you go. Love it.
And it's great for those times, like you said, where you can be easily distracted. If you're taking notes, you have something to focus on. Um, I've told my wife this over and over because she's a teacher, and of course, there's those people in her class who like to doodle while she's talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that can easily feel like, oh, they're not paying attention at all to me. And I remember when I was in school, I would doodle on my note pages. And it wasn't because I was listening more when I did that, because
Yes.
I wasn't distracted by everything around me. I was listening and doing something with my hands. And that
Yes.
connection actually made me listen more to what was being
Totally.
shared. And so some people, yeah, it could be a distraction. So I think it varies from person to person. But if you really want to focus, taking notes can really help you.
Absolutely. All right, Kyle, you're next. What have you got?
This is a big one, Corey. This is the big one.
The big one. Oh no.
You have to be willing to say no. If
And that's the show. Yeah.
if that just like struck you through the heart, work on that, because no is not a bad word. No is a good word. And it's good for everybody. It's not just good for you. So, just some examples I had here. There's kind of some different ways of saying no. So I mentioned the last episode, in episode 6, about turning off notifications and not having a bunch of notifications on. That's really one way of saying no, right? You're saying, I can't be disturbed right now. I'm not going to respond to what you're sharing with me. I'm saying no to communicating with other people right now because I need to focus. And that's okay. You get your work done. Especially the people you work with are very happy because you're doing the things you need to do, and they haven't distracted you from that. I think most of the time people you work with especially don't intend to distract you from what you're doing. They just don't know when you're doing it. So
Hmm.
turning those notifications off, saying no in that moment is great. Sometimes an impromptu meeting just won't work, and that's fine. You can say
Right.
no. There's always, especially when you work from home, there's always going to be someone that either you work with, and that, again, this could be someone you're working on a team with. This could be a client. This could even be somebody that just casually follows you and wants to talk with you, etc. And they just say, "Hey, can we talk soon? Can we talk about this? Can we talk about that?" And it's okay to say, "No, I've got a full schedule right now. We'll have to do it later.
Hmm.
Schedule a time. Let's figure this out." If they're unwilling to do that, it probably wasn't important in the first place, because if something's important, you're willing to schedule a time and talk about it.
Yeah.
And so don't let that distract you.
Yeah. And there's
Um,
a good way, a kind of a good way of addressing that too, is to say, I want to give this my full attention, and I won't be able to give my full attention right now. So let's get it on the calendar so that I can give you as much of my effort and focus as I can. Because then in that moment, you're not just saying no, you are saying no, but you're also saying, like, I want to do my best at this. And I don't want this to be a waste of either of our time. And so let's get it on the calendar so that this can be a good thing for both of us.
yeah, that's so good. And just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you literally just say no. Like, can we meet tomorrow? No.
No.
Just don't feel like you're obligated to people.
Yeah. It's the
Um,
spirit of the thing.
yeah. Also, filling all of your time with work is just not okay. It's really not. So
Like all of your lifetime, or
all of the whole day. So
yeah, okay.
like a 9 to 9 job, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just not okay. You have to take breaks. You have to have that mental clarity time. And there's even situations where you don't you're working a job that you don't necessarily love, or maybe it's something that's not just like you're not taking on more work out of the passion of it. You're just taking on more work because people asked you to. And
Mm,
so don't fill out all of that time just because people are asking you to do this and that, and take on everything someone asks you to do. And it's
right.
really easy to do that when you work from home, because you feel like, okay, I'm always in my workspace, right? Like I can always go to work anytime I want. There's no commute. I'm commuteless. so
Nice.
so I could just
Nice.
go to my office whenever I want and work on this stuff. So why would I say no to these 3 people who need something today? And the reality is you need to have that time for yourself. For maybe there's side projects, like if we filled all of our time, Corey, we couldn't record any of these episodes because we'd
Mm.
constantly be doing stuff for other people. We wouldn't have time with our family, etc. So just prioritize those things and be willing to say, I can't take that on right now. But to your point, Corey, it can either be a just I can't take that on, or I can't take that on right now. Can we do it at another time?
Right. Yeah.
Something like that. And the last one I have here is actually something that you brought up as we were talking about the show, which is that you don't have to give out your personal communication details, basically, like your phone
Yeah.
number,
Right.
for example. Not
Yeah.
everybody needs that.
There's a weird, and I want to acknowledge this, as we get further into the show, not just this episode, but the show, is that, I think that you and I have a pretty, what I would consider like up there ideal of working from home situations. Um, there are a lot of companies that are now working from home that are requiring key logging, and what that means is they track what you're typing, and they take screenshots of your computer screen every 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that you're doing your work. And it's a very over the shoulder, big brother, very toxic way of doing work. And I want to just be very clear about that. That is a very toxic way of handling your employees. And we're going to definitely do some episodes on management from an employee's perspective. There's a lot of podcasts and a lot of episodes, and people have done things about here's how I manage people. But we want to talk about being an employee or a contractor or somebody who's not necessarily calling those shots, but what it means for us and how you can empower us to do our best work. But do want to say that there's going to be a lot of pressure from your company to do these sorts of things, especially to give out your phone number or your email address. So as an example, I have given people on our marketing team, so I work with the marketing team, I've given them my personal phone number. That's because at this time in at our team, I'm the only full-time marketing site web developer at ConvertKit. There are other people who can come in and help do stuff, and I've written out processes. So if there's a problem, if I'm away, that stuff can be handled. But 70% of our website traffic is there to log into the app. Like they go to convertkit.com, they go to log into the app. And if for some reason the site breaks and people don't know how to go log into the app, that's a problem. And I would rather know about that on my weekend so I can quickly go fix that than to hear about it on Monday. But that's a choice that I have made that shouldn't be required of me. And there's also this company understanding that is a last resort. In fact, I've been on days off. I'm actually, on the day that we're recording this, I'm taking a 4-day weekend to take some paid time off to spend with my family. And I texted Charlie this morning about something that I'd forgotten to relay to her yesterday. I was like, "Ooh, just make sure you check that one thread." And she goes, "I will. Now do not speak to me about work until Monday." And she was just like really clear about it. So there's this really good culture around that with the company I work for, but that's not necessarily the case for everybody. But that is your choice, that you don't have to give that out, because people should not be able to contact you at 3 in the morning or 1 in the morning saying, "Hey, please get me this thing done." I mean, especially like clients. Can you imagine like giving your personal phone number to a client? And they're like, "Oh, I need you to make me a PDF. It's 1:30 in the morning. Go to bed." Oh, that's my client voice. But
It's urgent. This is going out tomorrow morning, Corey.
yeah,
This is a big deal.
fire that client immediately.
And on that note, I just know, Corey, there's someone listening right now who hears you talking about your situation and they think, well, it's reasonable that your employer would require your information because you're the only employee that can do XYZ.
Mm.
And the important thing to remember is that the employer decides who to hire and who to put in what position.
Mm.
And it's great that you take responsibility for that. It's great that you've given them your numbers so they can contact you, all those things. But as far as feeling obligated, they've made the decision to put all of that power into one employee's hands and
Yeah.
not have other people that control that as well. And that's okay. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But just realize that if you are in a position where you feel obligated to always be on call because you're the only one that can do XYZ, that's your employer's choice. So
Yes.
if something goes wrong and you're not there and you're off and they can't get a hold of you, it is not your fault
Yes.
because you're not
And
on the clock. You're not obligated to them, and
yeah.
it's their fault. Nobody else has that info.
And that should be something that should be discussed prior to employment, right? And that should be in the like you check the contract. If it says that you have time off, that's your time. And that's, I mean, that's such a good point, Kyle, of it's the employer's fault that they didn't hire on somebody else to help out with this thing. Like it's as morbid as it is, it's the hit by the bus scenario, right? So if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, what is the company going to do about what I'm responsible for? And that's kind of my responsibility, but it's the employer's responsibility to have me set those things up. And if I haven't been told to do that, or if I haven't taken responsibility on my own to go do that, that's their deal. So I need to protect my life. I need to protect my family. I need to protect my personal world here. And it shouldn't always be work. And dare I say, you shouldn't always be able to be contacted for work. Get a pager, get a burner phone, and then you can turn that off if you need to. But if it's like, hey, I'm going to go on vacation, I know that I hold the keys to all of this very important stuff. Last resort, go through all of this checklist. If it, and then last resort, you can call me on this number. It's my burner phone. I may or may not have it on, et cetera, et cetera. We're beating a dead horse here, Kyle, um, but again, that is your choice. If you want to give your employer or your teammates your personal contact info, that's up to you. But you don't have to. I think is what we're all trying to
Yeah.
get to.
And also, I just want to mention that it's perfectly reasonable for an employer to say, write down your processes so that we know them.
Totally.
So that's what instead of asking you to be on call, that's what they should be doing. If you're the only option, they should say, give us enough info that we can troubleshoot things while you're gone
Mm-hmm.
and kind of take this back over. And that's perfectly within their bounds to ask for. You are an asset for their business and you have processes and things you're doing. It's perfectly reasonable for them to ask you to provide those things. It's not perfectly reasonable for them to say, oops, we didn't hire enough people and I need to know something from you and you're not working right now. I need to get it now. Like
Yeah.
that's not your fault. And it's good that you take responsibility for things and you want to be there. But just to put that in perspective, it's not your fault
Yeah.
in that scenario. So
And I mean, it even kind of helps to highlight the importance that what you bring to the table. And maybe you can advocate for bringing somebody else on or getting a raise.
yeah,
Because if
definitely.
they need you at all times, then you need 20,000 more a year. So there you go.
Yeah.
We talked about that one for a while. I'll take on the next one. This is kind of we don't have to talk about this one for a long time. It's just real simple. But improving your communication with the people you work with, just make sure that you have places for long form and real time communication. So not everything should be real time because that becomes kind of this asynchronous. Did you see what I said that one time? Did you scroll back? Did you, when you log on, did you go through all the backlog and make sure you caught up on everything? Not everything needs to be real time, like in Slack or whatever. But not everything needs to be this long post, and not everything needs to be an email. Like there's different uses that come from these things. So we use Basecamp and Slack primarily. That's our primary modes of, okay, if we're working on a project, if there's a proposal, if there's something more that we need people to be able to access consistently, we use Basecamp. And then for regular day-to-day, week-to-week stuff, as we're kind of doing work, we might use Slack. And we're discouraged from using like, hey, if this is going to be a longer conversation about something important, don't do it in Slack. Go make a Basecamp post. And that's just important because you need to have those two separations. And you shouldn't expect that you saying something to somebody at 4:30 on a Friday is going to get to them on Monday, and you're going to get a good response back. So it's just make sure that you've got long form areas and tools, real time tools, so you can connect with people immediately if you need to, and just make sure that you have a space for that.
Yeah, that makes me think of when I very first started working in customer support. There was like everything was in Slack, and so updates about, hey, there's a bug you need to be aware of, or hey, there's this thing that's happening tomorrow. Make sure you know about it because somebody might be asking about it. All those things got buried, and
Right.
so you come into work, the next day, and it's like, oh, this customer is asking about some kind of event. Are we having an event today? And everyone's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's 30 messages up there. Did you not read?
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's like, no, like there's
Am I
got to
gonna?
be a
Am I
place where I
gonna?
can go to see
Yeah.
information that's not real time. So yeah, great
What do
points.
you use now for like the larger information gathering sort of thing?
So there's this really cool, I guess system I should say. It's an app. I don't know. It's called Guru.
Yep.
Um, getguru.com. But that has like it's just kind of cool, just like database of information. So if there's anything going on and I'm confused or don't know what to do, I can just go search for it and see if somebody's created a card for that. And that card will have certain information. It also creates an owner. So whoever's posted that card is asked to go update it every so often and make sure it's still relevant information and it's still correct. So it's a great way to share information. I think the only danger with something like Guru or even just those big kind of like long-term whatever databases of information
Mm.
is one of the big problems with that is just telling people, "Hey, go search on that thing and see if it's there."
Yeah. Right.
Instead of just talking to people because then you start to isolate people who may just want to talk. It's like,
Mm.
hey, do you know about this? Instead of just saying, go talk to this bot over here.
Yeah.
If
Right.
you just say, oh yeah, that's this thing, here's a link to where you can find that. And if you have questions about it or like, I don't know, whatever, just talk to people instead of pointing to the thing every time. So that's
Yeah.
the only downside to a system like that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What else you got?
So my last one is it's also not a big long topic, but just remember to stay organized. And I think we've kind of touched on this through every episode. That's a big
Sure.
part of working from home. Just stay organized, keep stuff where it needs to be, and part of that's physical things because you have your workspace and you have your living space, and you need to make sure you know where those begin and end but also just your files and all those kind of things on your computer. You're working on a computer so much if you work from home, and you just need to know where is stuff, how can I get to it quickly and easily. And I'll admit, I'm not always that great at this. I have plenty of files that are just random pieces of information. Um, what's great, we're talking about so many tools today, Corey. I like this.
Yeah. I love it.
But there is a little app for Macs. If you have a Mac, it's called Hazel. And Hazel is this really cool app that you can just put in some rules. So, for example, on my desktop computer, if I put a file onto the desktop that's an image or like a Adobe file, like a Photoshop file or an Illustrator file, it automatically moves that over into a folder called Media Inbox. And so I just have that running so that it can kind of help organize my files. You can
Hmm.
also do it based on maybe a certain title that you give things. So if you, for example, since we're both working with ConvertKit, if we put like CK something, then Hazel could see that CK and put it into some certain folder. And so it may not keep you 100% organized, but it's at least getting things in the right boxes so that you can later go and put them in the right places.
I love it. That's super cool. I know you've talked about Hazel with me before. I feel like years ago, but that's cool. I like that. We'll put that in the show notes. Commuteless.fm/7 if you wanna take a look at that.
just an extra little side note, Corey, you can even have Hazel move stuff based on time. So, for example, let's say you have an external hard drive connected to your computer and you want to make sure you have quick access to certain things. But let's say it's been 3 months and you haven't opened that file for 3 months. Hazel can automatically just move that over to another folder after that 3-month time and save you some disk space, or even just kind of move it into an archive folder, which is super handy as well.
That's super cool. I love that. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have. I mean, I'm sure we could get into it way more, but I think that's pretty good for a 5 tips episode. We can we'll dive into more of this. We keep saying that too, Kyle, like, oh, we'll get more into the thing and all that.
Would you like a bonus, Corey? I have a bonus.
Always.
Get sleep.
Oh man, I miss sleep.
And this doesn't sound like a communication tip, but it is, because if you don't get your sleep, you are a zombie. You don't want to reply to people. You're going to inadvertently be rude to people because you're just so tired. You're not going to remember things. You're not going to want to take notes or stay organized or do any of the things we talked about in this episode. So get sleep. I feel very hypocritical right now because at the time of recording this, it's about 11:40 at night.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll admit it, Corey, right now in my life, this is something I need to work on desperately. My wife and I both, we keep staying up really late and getting up really early. And it's not healthy. It's not good. So this is, if anything, also a reminder for myself to get that sleep and stay alert and just be present for other people.
And if you want good sleep, you have to schedule that and you have to be ready for it. And if we want good sleep, then we can't do podcasts at 11:45 at night. And that just means we have to be on schedule and on time and, all these things. Like, stuff came up in my life on Wednesday and we couldn't record, and stuff came up in your life today and we had to push things back. And sometimes things happen and that's fine. But the effort is there. And I totally agree that if you don't get good sleep, you're not well rested, you get cranky, stuff's odd, stuff's weird. You just get good sleep. That's just a good rule of thumb for life. Sleep better.
Yeah, I remember this.
Not brought to you by this mattress company. What a segue that would have been, though.
Yes. So this morning, I actually had this problem. I'll admit it. I'd just gotten online. I just started things, and it's kind of my morning routine to look around and see what's new and figure out what's happening. And somebody was asking me questions. And I didn't say anything rude to them, but on my side, I was just like, why are you asking me questions? Like, I don't care about this.
Stop it.
That's so rude to think, but I just was like, I'm not in the mood for this. And then I realized it's like 8:30 in the morning, and most people are like, if you're working a job, and you start at 8 or 7 or whatever, you're kind of decently awake by 8:40. Yeah, right. And I felt like it was 4 in the morning. So that's not good. And I was cranky, and I definitely wasn't giving them my 100% attention that I should have been. And so I needed to work on that for sure.
Get good sleep.
Any other thoughts, Corey? Anything else you want to add into the show?
Nope. I think that's it. Good show.
All right. Great show.
A great show.
A great show, Corey. I enjoyed this one a lot.
I did too. That was fun.
So let's talk about where people can find us online.
Well, you can find us online at Commuteless.fm. You can always find the episode by its number, Commuteless.fm/7 in this particular case. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter. We've got things there, tweets there, images there, stuff where you can subscribe and follow along. And we're on Instagram and Twitter at CommutelessFM. You can find me at CoreyDHMiller.com and CoreyDHMiller on Twitter. What about you, Kyle? Where can people find you?
You can find me at KyleAdams.me or on Twitter at It's Kyle Adams.
I love it.
Well, thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Are we going to talk about how we couldn't really start this episode at the very beginning because we just kept messing everything up?
Oh my gosh. So I had like a complete, I don't know what that was. It's like
It
a
was
brain
mental
lapse.
breakdown. Mental breakdown.
I did the intro and then I was supposed to introduce Corey and I just sat there. And then suddenly my brain just caught up with me and I was like, and I was like, we had to redo it.
Oh, I love it.